In the year 2000, a mysterious stone was found near the Dead Sea. It wasn't written in ink, but in ink on stone. Known as the Gabriel Revelation, it contained 87 lines of a prophecy delivered by an archangel. But there was a missing fragment, a section of the stone that had been surgically removed in antiquity. Our investigation has tracked the digital trace of this missing text to a private collection in Zurich. The Gabriel Protocol doesn't just predict a war, it predicts a date, a year where the time of the Gentiles and the cycle of the blood moon intersect with a mathematical precision that defies logic. Why did the Archangel warn that 2026 would be the year the seal of the abyss would lose its structural integrity? Most scholars look at the sky for answers. We are looking at the archive today, and we unseal the letter that was never meant to be read by this generation. This is not a prediction, it is a countdown. For years, the 87 lines of the Gabriel Revelation were studied by the world's top epigraphists. They spoke of a prince of princes and a resurrection after 3 days. But in 2024, a leaked scan of a secondary fragment surfaced, the 88th line. In original Hebrew it reads, "In the 7th week of the 8th cycle, the gate of the north shall breathe." When we apply the Jubilee math used by the Essenes at Qumran, the 7th week of the 8th cycle from the restoration of the dry bones lands precisely on the spring of 2026. The Archangel wasn't speaking in metaphors. He was speaking in standardized celestial time. To understand why 2026 is the terminal year, we must look at the Daniel sequence. The prophet Daniel spoke of 1,290 days and 1,335 days. Most theologians try to fit these into the past, but the Archangel's letter, addressed to the last watchman, suggests these are not days, but geometric degrees of the Earth's precession. The letter describes a stumbling block that appears when the star Regulus aligns with the peak of the Great Pyramid. This alignment, which happens once every 2,000 years, reaches its zenith in the early months of 2026. The Archangel Gabriel, known in the archive as the Master of the Left Hand, warns that this alignment triggers a frequency shift in the human spirit. It is described as the thinning of the veil. In technical terms, the letter suggests that the barrier between the physical and the metaphysical becomes porous. 2026 isn't the end of the world. It is the end of the isolation. The second half of the letter is directed at what the Archangel calls the seed of the second breath. He warns of a correction in the human genome. "Beholding," the text reads, "those who have altered the temple of the flesh shall hear a sound that the uncircumcised ear cannot bear." This is a terrifying theological prospect. The Archangel is suggesting that by 2026, a specific biological marker will be activated by a celestial signal. This brings us to the silent plague mentioned in the Dossier. Not a plague of bacteria, but a plague of dissonance. The letter warns that those who are unaligned will experience a profound mental fracturing. Why was this kept secret? Because it implies that our survival in 2026 is not dependent on bunkers or gold, but on the resonance of our own spirit. In the book of Revelation, John hears the 7 thunders, but is told not to write down what they said. However, the Archangel's letter claims to be the transcription of the first thunder. The first thunder speaks of the rising of the sun from the west. Scientists call this a geomagnetic reversal. The Archangel calls it the Great Flip. According to the Dossier, the magnetic poles of the Earth are tied to the moral compass of humanity. As the poles drift, so does our sense of reality. The letter predicts that by mid-2026, the magnetic north will have shifted to a critical point that triggers a shutdown of the global electronic grid. Not because of a solar flare, but because of a terrestrial sigh. The Earth itself is resetting. As we sit in the midpoint of 2026, the Archangel's letter moves from the cosmic to the microscopic. What Gabriel warns that before the gate of the north fully exhales, 3 signs will manifest in the biology of the individual. Sign 1. The distortion of circadian resonance. The letter describes a loss of the sweetness of sleep. Since January, global data shows a 40% spike in REM stage anomalies. People are not just dreaming, they are remembering things that haven't happened yet. Sign 2. The metallic taste. Gabriel writes of the breath of the firmament tasting like cold iron. This is the physiological reaction to the thinning magnetic field. Your body is a sensor, and it is detecting the atmospheric shift before the satellites do. And sign 3, the frequency of the 17th pulse, a sound described as a low trumpet behind the wind that only those of the corrected seed can hear. If you have felt a vibration in your inner ear that defies medical explanation, you are not ill. You are being tuned. For centuries, theologians have debated the identity of the restrainer mentioned in the scriptures, the force holding back the man of sin. The Gabriel protocol identifies this force not as a person, but as a frequency buffer. The Archangel's letter states that the restrainer is a harmonic resonance emitted by the Earth's core. But here's the critical update. The letter predicts that in September 2026, this resonance will drop to 0. Why September? Because that is when the Gate of the North is scheduled to achieve full synchronization with the Star of Regulus. When the resonance stops, the restraint vanishes. The Dossier suggests that the entities we call mythology will no longer be confined to the peripheral vision of humanity. They will be structural. If you want to know if a prophecy is real, don't look at what the politicians say. Look at where they move. The Archangel's letter contains a specific set of coordinates, the safety latitudes. According to the document, the geomagnetic reset of 2026 will create null zones, where the atmosphere will temporarily lose its ability to shield from solar radiation. The Vatican's secret archives contain maps labeled Exodus 2026 that mirror Gabriel's instructions. They aren't building for a nuclear war, they are building for a solar ingress. While the public is told to watch the news, the elite are watching the magnetosphere. They are positioning themselves in the cold pockets of the earth to survive the great reset of the Archangel. This is the part of the dossier they tried to erase. The warning was never meant to cause fear. It was a manual. Line 92 of the expanded text gives the protocol of the stillness. It instructs the reader to seek the heights where the cedar grows and to silence the iron within the walls. In modern terms, get away from the power grid and move to higher elevations. The letter claims that the celestial signal of 2026 will interact with modern electronics to create a feedback loop in the human nervous system. Gabriel's warning is literal. To survive the month of September, you must disconnect from the artificial and reconnect with the lithosphere, the Earth itself. As we close the file on the Archangel's warning, one question remains. Why would a celestial being deliver a technical manual for 2026 to a scribe 2,000 years ago? The Archangel wasn't protecting humanity as a whole. He was protecting the memory. He knew that in 2026, the Great Erasure would attempt to delete our connection to the divine. We are now in the window. The thinning of the veil is no longer a theory. It is your daily reality. The Gabriel Protocol tells us that the end of this year is not a wall, but a doorway. But who or what is waiting on the other side? Look at your clock. Look at your hands. Feel the metallic taste on your tongue. The warning was delivered. The letter is unsealed. The countdown is at 0. You have been warned. Now, you must choose your latitude.